As usual, before we begin, we are going to introduce you to the audience. So, you are undertaking PhD studies at the Swinburne University of Technology in Australia. You are examining also tourism contribution to regenerative development. You are also an active member of Regenesis group in 2014, and you co-found and operate Krama Sunrise, a social enterprise day tour company based in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. From 2018 until you commence your PhD studies, facilitate student trips, and coordinate projects at Ceres Global. We are happy to having you today with us.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
So you have been written a lot of academical articles regarding regenerative tourism. And so this is why we have you today, and we would like to understand a bit better the differences between regenerative tourism and sustainable tourism.
Okay. Yeah, there are a few differences and also some similarities. From the perspective of the differences, it's a different way of thinking about tourism and stems from a different worldview or a different paradigm, which sees the world. So regenerative approaches see the world as interconnected and humans not separate from the rest of nature, whereas the sustainable development paradigm comes from a way of thinking that humans are separate from the rest of nature and can control what nature does and does things to nature, and that nature is a resource for humans. Whereas the regenerative development paradigm thinks about humans as being part of nature and in relation to, and that we don't just use plants and animals and places for our own consumption. We have a reciprocal relationship with them, and that we need to care for one another. And so that type of thinking then puts us into a different way of relating. And so then when you think about then tourism's role, because tourism are a set of practices really that humans then engage in relation to places and communities and with one another. So then we think about, well, what are tourism's contributions to the health and vitality of each and every place and community we visit, rather than how can tourism have this economic relationship with various places and make money for humans or for the benefit of humans only. Sustainability is not totally separate from regenerative approaches. We actually need sustainability measures so that we can actually maintain and conserve our communities and our places. But where regeneration departs from sustainability, so where regenerative development starts to advance from sustainability is that it basically sees life as part of a living, evolving system, so that we don't have these stagnant ways of thinking about it. And so we need to continue to evolve and develop ourselves and each other, and even the rest of nature needs to continue to develop and evolve. And so we need to continually align ourselves with the rest of nature, and tourism needs to continually reassess its relationship with the places that it's operating in and the communities that it's affecting, so that it continue to contribute to that life, and so that it can renew itself. So we're not focused on getting back to a standard level. We're needing to continue to to work our way into different higher levels of order so that we can all evolve together.
It makes a lot of sense. And also, like, there is a role, like, in a regenerative mindset. Like, I know that each stakeholder have a specific roles or need, like, a specific interaction. So could you maybe go deepen a bit, like, what are their particular roles in that sense?
Yeah, so myself and some colleagues have published a paper on that, transformative roles in a tourism living system. And so one of the things about this regenerative approach is that and the different mindset is that it uses living systems thinking. And so when we are thinking about different roles that various beings play, we are thinking about that in terms of how they relate to one another. And so thinking about whole complex systems. So rather than breaking different people or parts of the tourism system into parts and turning us into consumers or producers, which is the conventional way of thinking about it, what this approach does is starts to think about all of our roles as contributors to the health and vitality of a place and a community. And so the very first role is that of placing. And so that is of the place that actually hosts all of these activities that tourism engages in. So whether they're even an airport can be a tourism place because it is playing a role in hosting guests that come through. And so if we're thinking, say, of a hotel within a particular place, that so that place that community are hosting that hotel. And so as a living system, a hotel has nature all around it. And so we might have the particular climate, the environment. There might be an ocean close by. There'll be lots of plants and animals that are playing a placing role and that are shaping the experience that the guests will be having when they go there. So if it's a tropical place with a beach, it will be very different to a mountain that has snow on it. So that hotel is very much interconnected and nested within that place that then provides sustenance and for those people and other beings that are there. And in terms of this way of thinking, the place is not a thing that we do things to and that we try to extract value from. It's actually an active agent and plays a really strong role in shaping what happens and how tourism can evolve in that place.
That's true, and each place is really unique in itself, so you really need to adapt and have a local response and not a generic response somehow. And then you had a second point, right? On that topic, huh?
Yeah, so each place has its own unique essence, as you said, Naomi. So what's connected to that is therefore its potential. What's it trying to become? What's each place trying to become? And so the role of a tourist host, so hosting is the second role, is to contribute to whatever it is that place and community are trying to become so that it can contribute to its health and vitality, but also receive benefits as well. And so the hosting role in a tourism living system is really those players who are enabling that tourism activity to occur. Then you've got the role of the guest. And so thinking about it in a tourism living system frame, guests are not just people that come and sit on a beach, pay a bit of money, leave their rubbish and leave. These are guests. Guests are people just like you when you have people come over and visit you at your house. There's a warm exchange and friendliness and making friends with people, and hospitality is at the heart of a tourism living system and the way we offer tourism and design tourism experiences. So guests, when they come to this hotel or place, the tourism experience that they're having, they are coming to offer not only money, but their ideas and exchange, respect for that place. But then also, when it's done at its best, somehow there will be some sort of transformation that will happen because of that exchange between the guest, the place, the community, and the hosts, so that everybody's richer for it. Everybody is better off as a result of coming together. And we know that that's been happening for thousands of years. Humans have been moving across this earth for thousands of years, and we travel for so many reasons. And so it's really about trying to tap into how the ways we can enrich each other, not extract from one another, but actually enrich each other. So obviously then the other role is the communing role. And so that they are, and that's often made up of the local residents and other people who are in the community who might not directly be involved in hosting tourists directly, but if this hotel is in a in a particular village or city, there's a whole lot of other activity that's going on that the community is involved in and that the community is supporting. And so that's definitely a critical part. And then the final role is the stewarding role. And that's a role that any of those other roles can take up as well. And so these are these are stakeholders who take a very active role in caring for their place, above and beyond just being respectful and having nice exchanges. It's really people investing their time and attention into ensuring that this place and community and the guests that come can be well for many years to come.
And how do you create those specific interaction between all those stakeholders?
Yeah, great question. You need to design for that, and so have an intent to actually do that, so that if you're going to have specifically focus on attracting visitors to your place or to your community, to your business, you need to actually work with the key stakeholders to ensure that you create experiences that meet the needs of all of those stakeholders. And so that everyone, as a result of coming together, is better off for that experience, and that and it can actually contribute to that place meeting its potential, that the thing that it's trying to become.
Now that you are talking about the things that the place say we want it, or we are wondering to take your example and your expertise in your home country, so Australia. Yes. Right now.
Yes.
And you have been involved in regenerative projects there. So we are wondering how Australia and Canada are somehow interconnected or similar?
Yeah, great question. So Canada and Australia are both settler colonial nations that have a rich Indigenous history, and so we both of those nations have Indigenous people who have been living in those places for many thousands of years, and who hold worldviews and relationships with the land and the waterways that they've been custodians of, and have knowledge and practices that we could all learn from across the world, even in places, say in Europe, that don't have that don't have as strong connection with their Indigenous heritage. But we've all got Indigenous heritage. All humans have somewhere had a connection, and understand and have lived in harmony with the land and waterways. The situation we're in now is only, is fairly recent in terms of so-called modern times, and so the work that I've been involved in Melbourne is trying to decolonise some of the way we've been operating. Because if I give you the example of our main river that is running through the city of Melbourne, it's been treated as a drain and as a place to put rubbish and to run boats up and down, and ships, etc. It hasn't been treated with the respect and reverence that our traditional custodians are treated. They consider the river a sacred being and have a reciprocal relationship with that river, and an obligation to care for that place. And 230 something years ago, when the settlers colonized that place, that river, you could drink out of it. It was maintained in pristine condition. Can you imagine that? Being able to drink from that river.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And it would flow and as it needed to, and it would flood as it needed to, because it was nourishing its lands.
Yeah, I have an example right now because I'm from Colombia, and we have some indigenous or aborigines there that they protect a lot their fields.
Right.
So I was I was amazed because I went one time to a mountain that is very protected, and I drink the water from the river. It was like the first time that I really drink a real water.
Yes.
So I can understand the feeling of protect your home.
Yes, absolutely. And look, that river, that same river, is one of the few rivers that we still drink out of upstream. So they've protected from the source up to a certain point. They've actually protected the river, and so Melbourne gets 70% of its water from that river. Yet then the lower reaches have been totally modified, straightened out. The river's been channelized so that then it won't, flood as much. But it's in trouble if we continue in this way. And so, and then when you get, and that the reason why the settlers chose that place was because of the river, right? It's because it's our host. It's our city's blood. The Indigenous traditional custodians consider it as our bloodline, just like veins in our body. So thinking about it that way, and then knowing that, say, in the central business district area, there's a lot of hospitality businesses, lots of very expensive hotels, all the most expensive rooms face the river. Like, there's a lot of money that gets made from the river, but very little given back. And there's a lot of harm that comes with having so many people using the river for consumption. So in terms of thinking from a regenerative development perspective and thinking about what's tourism's contribution, I've been working with various stakeholders here in Melbourne, non-government organisations, some social entrepreneurs, various activist groups that are promoting being able to swim in cities. So there's a swimmable cities movement worldwide. And I don't know if you know, but for the Paris Olympics, they're going to be swimming in the Seine River. So this is this is a movement that is happening because people are recognising that and wanting to reclaim our rivers, because we've become very disconnected. We don't feel like we're part of nature. And I don't know if what happened in Canada during COVID, but certainly in Australia, in Melbourne in particular, we had very significant periods of time in lockdown, and including a 5-kilometre limit for where we could travel. They wanted to really limit the amount of travel. And so people started just walking out to their creeks and rivers, etc., that anywhere where they could get access to nature. And so it really highlighted the need for that connection. And tourism, as a set of practices, can really help connect people, reconnect people back, and play that connector role. So that certainly came out in my research really strongly, that it can really assist us on that journey potentially to start to reconnect with nature and feel like we can live differently, and really inspire us to make efforts to do so.
As we were reading and also exploring, we know that Australia is more advanced in regenerative travel, in tourism. So I was wondering, how could Canada get inspired by Australia?
Canada has some incredible work happening as well, can I say? And Canada is often a place that Australia looks to, actually. So I would say that because you have such a lot of work that's been really incredible with Indigenous communities, and that a lot of Indigenous tourism is rising and becoming more popular, that they can really play a leadership role here if they are interested in regenerative approaches, because regeneration is inherent in the way they think about how life works. And so regenerative development is just an approach that actually starts to bridge some of these worldviews and try to make sense of what it means within the this context that we're in now. So that, I suppose that's one thing, that there is definitely examples from outside in Australia, that places like Australia that Canada can look at, and even places like Mexico, Central and South America are some of the leaders, but no one knows about them in the English-speaking world. But in terms of my research, some of the most cutting-edge leading work that's happening is in Central and South America. But the other thing from Australia is that there are some projects that are starting up now as experiments to a degree to try to look at, well, what could this mean? The other place is Aotearoa, New Zealand, Māori community, Indigenous community, who are asserting their values and principles, and then regenerative tourism practitioners are looking, and regenerative development practitioners are then looking about how they can be woven together to support the work, and how can they understand, because they've got such a intimate connection and knowledge of the land and waterways of those places. That's like the first step with trying to understand how you're going to go forward, really understanding the essence and potential of that place. And so drawing from those knowledge systems and involving those communities and those leaders will be a really incredible way to do that. Australia, in a lot of ways, is starting, like a lot of places, is just starting on this journey. It's a struggle for a lot of tourism operators to adapt to I suppose transform towards this, because the conditions that we are working in are very, very locked into the neoliberal growth paradigm, where it's, you know, all profit driven. So it's really difficult, and it's particularly after COVID, for operators to
Switch mentality.
Yeah, to switch mentality, but then also from a practical perspective to start to pivot towards more regenerative approaches, because the system is geared up for extraction. If any business says to you that they're regenerative, they're actually either don't know what they're talking about, or they're greenwashing, because there is no regenerative tourism business, because it's only an aspiration. It's an aspiration. It's not an end state. It's not a type of tourism. It's an approach. Okay, so it's a way of thinking, and it's a journey that we go on towards these evolving to become more regenerative. There's an infinity sign at the top of that, because it never ends. You constantly, there's no end state to get to. It's constantly got to change with the changing systems and around you.
As the community and the environment and the everything is moving all the time.
That's right.
So,
everything's moving all the time, and so and so the tourism operators need to move with it.
As you say, that there is not any business that can tell itself that is regenerative or that is a regenerative organization. So how can we recognize them, for example, as a tourist when we're traveling somewhere? How can we go to the particular location that we know that is using the regenerative approach and mindset?
Yeah, no, great question. It's really hard. I don't think there is a way to tell at the moment very easily, other than, and it takes, like with sustainability, it takes a lot of work on for the consumer, or for the person who wants to travel and utilize these tourism experiences or engage with them. I shouldn't say use. There's a lot of homework to do and background information. There are no reputable certified organisations. That doesn't seem to align.
What could be your hopes then in the future for the regenerative approach or mindset to extend and to be more, I don't know, maybe certified or to be more recognizable in this sense?
My hope is that what will happen is that amongst tourism operators that we will build a field of practitioners who and businesses who are committing to getting really serious about adopting this approach and doing the hard work to try and understand it. Because as you two have already realised and done, you've already started to do a lot of reading and background understanding and contemplating. It's not easy to get your head around, and it takes a
Not at
long
all.
time. It's not, it isn't. And for me, you know, I'm publishing papers about it, and I've been looking at this since, you know, for a number of years now, but I still feel like I'm still at the start of understanding it.
Yeah, and I have one last question is what do you think about the degrowth? Like, could it fit with the mentality of the regenerative approach?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I haven't put a lot of time thinking into it, but I think there are synergies with degrowth and regenerative approaches in that we need to live within our means. Yeah. So if we're led by first law principles of nature, in that we don't take more than what nature can provide, and if we are consuming or trying to grow in ways that are outside of those limits that we all need to live in and respect, then yeah, degrowth is definitely, it's got to be part of the picture. Because the question is, what are we trying to grow? Yes, we need to think about financial capital as a flow that supports the rest rather than that driving everything else.
What would you like to the audience to remember for our conversation, like the highlights?
I think for the operators who are frustrated with the status quo, who want more meaning in their lives, want to be able to see that there are some ways that they can contribute meaningfully to the well-being not only of themselves and their businesses, but their communities, making a contribution to future generations. That this is a way of thinking that it's not necessarily an easy path, but it's a very rewarding and exciting one, and one that is bringing a lot of hope, particularly to younger generations. A lot of younger people, it's really well known, are really excited about the possibilities for creating a more sustainable world. And regeneration is really an opportunity for us to start to not only restore some of the damage, but actually align the way that we live much more with natural processes of life. Rather than fighting against nature, let's work on how we can adapt and live with. And tourism has an incredible opportunity to help people on that journey.
So thank you very much with the big opportunity that you tell us, and also thank you for having the time to talk with us and your researchers. We are very happy to having you with us today.
Thank you, and congratulations. It's a great thing that you're putting out into the world.